Welcome.
You are watching Line Screw 1. Sammy, what you wanna do?
Well, hello tubers. Today I am now back at Seacan Station Zebra, and things have worked out okay here in terms of the garden. Thanks to me running water up here almost every day, otherwise the garden would have died. But I learned a few things about surviving the heat. We were hitting record temperatures of 111 Fahrenheit, even a little bit higher in places. But here it was just brutal. Records broken all over British Columbia. And of course, as many of you know, I had to hunker down in an RV park because there was just no way for my air conditioning to keep up. First of all, take a look. There is no shade here, at least not during the hottest part of the day. And I learned something about these modern generators that are sine wave generators. They have circuitry built in that will shut down the generator on a heavy load once a certain temperature is reached. And I did a bunch of tests with it yesterday as it cooled down, and I realized that that circuitry tends to kick in somewhere in the low 90s. So I don't know, it's kind of a mixed blessing where the generator could actually run a heavy load under high temperature, but it could risk damaging the actual circuitry. So the designer of at least my inverter has a circuit that kicks in once it gets to a certain temperature. That way the generator is not destroyed. So what can you do? So if you own one of these modern pure sine wave generators, you will soon discover that it has a circuit, at least most of the decent ones have a circuit that will shut down at a certain temperature where you're not going to be able to run a heavy load like air conditioning. So you've been warned. I think the answer to that is to own a very large water-cooled diesel generator, or if you happen to be in a location where you could put your generator next to a nice cool flowing river and perhaps the air temperature around a body of water would be cooler. Now I unfortunately don't have that ability to do that, so if you're going to try to live out in the open desert in 110 Fahrenheit temperatures and up, good luck. Can you do it without even air conditioning? Sure. Now I'm certain there are people that are biologically equipped to do it. After all, there are people that even climb Mount Everest without oxygen. But for most people, that's not really doable. So I really don't recommend you actually even trying to survive that kind of temperature. You need to go where there's shade and unlimited water and electricity, so that way you can run the damn air conditioner. At the worst of it, even with the shade, my air conditioning was only keeping the inside of the RV cooled to maybe 79 degrees. So it was fighting because the outside temperature was just brutal. It did make a difference inside, but it wasn't as cool as I would have liked it to be. Anyway, let's move on to the garden. I'll show you what's going on there and how it has survived the heat wave. Okay, let's take a look at the strawberries. They're doing excellent. Guaranteed these babies wouldn't have survived if I wouldn't have been bringing them up water. Oh, and we have our very first tomato coming. See that? There we go. That's the first one. Everything else survived pretty good too, and as you can tell, I'm about to unload the motorcycle. Let's go into the back here and talk about this damn generator. So I keep the old Jenny back here so I don't have to hear it run. And we do have the possibility of thunder showers occasionally at night, so I like to keep it covered. Now this darn thing has been a lifesaver, but like I said earlier, the circuitry component that prevents overheating really works against you once it gets hot. So a new strategy could possibly be hooking two of these together, because it does have a parallel
kit. So there is a chance that if I bought another one and the parallel kit and ran the air conditioning off of that, I'd have 2 units working a little less hard, and I probably could squeak out a few higher degrees of use. And in doing so, I probably could have a scenario where the circuitry will not overheat quite as easily, even though I have a sneaking suspicion that doing so would only probably buy me a few extra degrees of operation. Because let's face it, it's not really the ideal situation to run a generator 12 or 16 hours a day in 111 degree weather. Not good for the circuitry, not good for the engine. It's just tough operating conditions. And I do have a sneaking suspicion that those really old generators that were not pure sine wave, they tend to be a little bit more rugged. And of course they're not encapsulated in plastic like these modern suitcase type ones. Now of course the output is not as clean, but they tended to work pretty good in higher temperatures, assuming you weren't at high altitude, because, you know, all engines do not operate with the same level of efficiency the higher up you go. Now, the back 40 fire pit here. Unfortunately, we do have a fire ban in place in most parts of the province, so I will not be having a fire in a long time till they rescind that. Of course, we don't want to burn down our forests. So, you know, it's one of those rules, I guess, that makes sense. But it does take away from some of the fun, because having a fire in the evening is especially one of the more endearing things you can do when you're camping. So it's going to be a beautiful day. It's about 6 a.m. here. Sun's been up for, oh boy, over an hour. I like this time of the year. So let's take the motorcycle off. I guess we should time-lapse that, because it'd be kind of boring to watch it in regular speed. And that's how you unload a bike. And it took exactly 5 minutes, and I wasn't even rushing. So, a lot easier than towing a vehicle, I think. The very next day. Now, I do got some good news to report about the generator. I've been experimenting with some different oils to see if it can run a little cooler in hot temperature. So what I did the other day was move to a 10W40. And she's running a lot cooler, and now the generator can easily handle temperatures well into the mid-90s. So that's a success. Now the stupid manual for this thing says 10W30 is pretty much good except for high temperatures, which they recommend straight 30. Now I'm in the middle of nowhere, and you cannot get a straight 30 motor oil around here at all. And on top of that, I was skeptical that 30 weight alone would actually cut it. So I thought the wider temperature range of the 10W40 was more appropriate, since I've used 10W40 in air-cooled motorcycles for years, and that's the appropriate oil for an air-cooled engine such as that. So I figured at the very least the motor oil would do nothing. At best it would do something. So I figured I had nothing to lose by trying the 10W40, and it's working great. So if you're in my predicament and you are in a very hot environment, 10W40 is your baby. Now this is a really cheap brand of 10W40, and I was even lucky to find it, because, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, you know, they just have the more common motor oils used for, you know, cars. So I think when I change the oil, I'm going to try and find myself some 10W40 synthetic and go with a quality motor oil. But I think I'm going to stick with 10W40 until the temperature changes in the fall. And even with my temperature gun, I'm noticing that the exhaust temperatures are a little cooler. Hence, the high temperature shutdown doesn't occur under a heavy load as easy with this kind of motor oil. It's always fun to do the experiment yourself and see what your actual results are. Now, your results may vary, and experimenting with different weights of motor oil is at your own peril. But I thought I would share what worked for me.
Do you see what I mean? Nobody gives a damn. And still they bow down, just appeasing the game. To the visible ends of. You're not kidding me, no matter how hard you try. So just stay off. Come near and I'll leave. I'm just.
Well, I've decided to use the top of this sea can as a nice little sun deck. I've got a foldable sun lounge chair that I can throw up here. And the advantage is there's not going to be hardly any ants up here. There's a lot of ants when you're walking around bare feet down on the ground. So I think this would be some nice usable space. Looks like it's going to be another beautiful day here. And since it's still morning here, I got a few strawberries that I'm going to enjoy for breakfast. So that's about it from Seacan Station Zebra. I guess I'll talk to you soon. In the meantime, folks, stay safe, keep your wheels in the ground, and I'll talk to you soon. Over and out. I think I could stay with you.
Gonna figure out what we've done, what we need to do. Yeah, I got you, I got you, I got you.